Okay, with us today is the Election Commission Interim Administrative Election, Ms. Joan Nixon. If you would, Ms. Nixon, introduce your staff or that you brought with you this evening, and the floor is yours for your presentation.
My pleasure. I am Joan Nixon, as you all know. I'm the Interim Administrator of Elections. And to my right, I have the Chairman, Jim Delanis, of our Election Commission. I have to my left, I have Bill Hyden, who is our Finance Manager. And in the back, we have Commissioners Hertzfeld, Starling, and Lawson that are representing our commission. We have another Commissioner, Jesse Neal, and I don't believe he's back there just yet. But we are here today. First of all, thank you all for allowing us this opportunity to come and discuss our budget needs, the purposes of that. And so I will start off by saying that our FY 2017 budget, the Election Commission developed a framework for the free and fair elections in this county, and we created that budget to make sure that every citizen has the ability to cast their ballot for the August election, as well as our anticipating the presidential and state election. The mayor's proposal to the Metro Council reduces the Election Commission's requested budget by $314,000, and that leaves 12 part-time personnel filled positions to be unfunded. So in those reductions, we have been looking at the reductions and what that's going to do to our department. And it will change the dynamics of how we continue to do our service and our duties pertaining to putting on an election. And without those funds, we will have to eliminate those 12 part-time positions. And we will need to rework how we procure the elections, and it would reduce our staff at least 38.7%, and that's below the 2008 totals that's in your packet, in your budget sheet. And if you look on page 2 of the prep that I had each of you all to be given, our core staff, full-time, part-time, and the total number of employees is not out of line from eight years later to 2016. And we want to make sure that we maintain those positions, maintain the integrity of the voting process, and to continue to do what we've been doing. We've been doing a fabulous job with this, with our elections. 2012 state audit, as many of you all know and read, revealed some things, some glaring things that we had to address. And we have addressed those, and that is evident through putting on excellent elections. And we're just making sure we want to continue to do that part of our work. I do want to make mention that the budget for that, the mayor's budget that was recommended did include our Get Out of the Vote initiative, which is going to be highlighted, extremely highlighted for this year's election cycle. Voter registration needs and the special voting services needs. So we're very appreciative of that. But we do need to I'm here to address the 12 unfunded part-time positions. I can take your questions now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it, Joan. We're glad to have you, Bill. We're happy everybody's here and appreciate all the hard work that you have put in. I've spent quite a bit of time with you reviewing your operations and funding. I've just got a couple of questions. I want to clarify some points.
Okay.
So let's talk about the supplemental for just a minute. And you had withdrawn the request for the supplemental. And can you just share, were your budget obligations met for this fiscal year when you withdrew that request?
I will let our finance manager, Mr. Hyden, address that.
Cool.
supplemental was requested by us on March the 15th. That was just 2 weeks after the March 1st election. We hadn't had all the costs in for the expense on the election and the people that's working. So the Finance Department needed a supplemental request on the 15th. They needed it on that date. I wasn't prepared to give them a final estimate of what our costs were. I thought it was around $180,000, but I wasn't sure. So I told the finance person that I was talking to that I said, I will submit in the supplemental the part that I have estimated that we are unfunded, and that's $314,000. That's our request for FY17. Later in April 18th, I found that we had received a a fringe benefit adjustment of $176,000. That would have given us a total of around $490,000 into our budget toward the end of the year, and that was just too much money. It would have been irresponsible for us to take that money and have so much, when somebody else may be able to use it. So I spoke with my boss, Joan Nixon, and I told her what the situation was, that unknowingly we received a fringe benefit adjustment, and from what my estimates are, we don't need the supplemental. We don't need to ask for something and have so much money left over in the end of our year. So it was decided that we do the responsible thing and tell you what we did. Now, the reason we could do that is because that we held 3 positions open. We had, since July the 1st, we had a contract HR person. We had 2 full-time workers positions that we kept open that totaled $140,000 in salary, and then we found savings in the election side of the budget for $40,000 that helped us to come through.
So let's talk about those 12 employees. Were they employed in the last year? Were they on staff the last year?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so you had the 12 employees last year, and we didn't need a supplemental last year because you found the money in the fringe and in additional election cycle savings, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had a clear picture of that. Let's talk just a quick second about voter rolls and about employee staffing. So over the last, just say 4 voter cycles, have our voter registration numbers gone up or down?
If you will look on page 4 of your handout, we have already received 24,000 applications. Now, just keep in mind the applications, voter registration applications remedy everything. If you're a new voter in Davidson County, if you're updating your address or changing your name or requesting a new card. So those applications totaled about 24,000. And as of right now, we have about 384,000 registered voters, and that does include your inactive voters as well as your active voters.
And have we updated those rolls for people that may have moved or died?
Yes. Our death list, as it's been called, we look at that on a daily basis, and we're purging people who are deceased. Yes.
Okay, and then people that move out of the county, how long does it take you to get that notification?
Well, that notification would come from the state computer. If it's within the state of Tennessee, of course, we have no way of knowing if those voters have been purged going to another state.
Mm-hmm.
But within the state of Tennessee, we do have the capability of updating that on a daily basis if they're moving within the state.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's talk just a second, if we could, and this is my last question, Chair, about the overtime piece. And can you elaborate a little bit on that overtime line item?
Okay, sure. Since I don't receive overtime, I'm going to let our finance manager address the overtime issue. Question.
Because of the vacancies that we've had to have open to keep the 12 people on, and again, this is a hardship because there are people like myself, like Joan, I'm going to say another lady, Miss Hampton, where we work an enormous amount of hours to make this work, because we worked with finance at the very beginning of this year and notified them very clearly what we were doing and what the plan was and what we would do, and we have done that. This is, you know, Joan herself has lost vacation time because she hasn't taken off. Another lady has done the same thing. You know, but we're there to make sure that this election office works for everybody, and that's what we're there for. We want it fixed. The overtime is a direct relative effect of having a shortfall of personnel because we have so much work to do. We overspent in overtime this year of $42,000 of what we had budgeted.
How much overtime does that equal?
Well, it's over 13% of each person's salary that worked over $6,000 worth of overtime.
Okay. That's all. Those are all the questions I have, Chair, right now.
Councilman Mendez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions about the presentation. I'd gone off the book, and so I'm trying to figure out how the book matches up with the presentation. And so I'm looking at page 2, particularly the part-time personnel funding. First column is what the Election Commission's budget request was of the mayor's office for 2017?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if we compare it to the 2016 actual budget, what would that first line item say?
I'll let Finance Manager answer that. He has that.
Well, the non-recurring funds that we asked for last year was $3,125,700. So we are asking, our request is this year with the is $850,000 less than what we asked for last year.
Okay. So I must have asked a bad question.
Yeah, that is due to
Let me try that question again.
Election.
So on the chart you guys gave us today for part-time personnel funding, what was it for the 2016 budget?
That was $446,000.
So you guys asked for less this year?
Yes. There were less fringe benefit costs, and then we had a couple of changes in which we had lower salaries of the part-time people. And
In the budget book, where would I look to find those numbers? I'm having a hard time matching that up.
I just found out the budget pages were out there, out in the hallway just a little while ago, and I apologize.
Okay. Maybe you guys can get back to me about that. That makes it hard to really consider this, honestly, and particularly in light of sort of the moving target from my perspective as before I was elected, just watching in the media last year, the scuffle about needing more funds and holding the early voting, hostage, quote unquote, and then not needing the supplemental appropriation this year, not being able to connect it to the budget book really makes it hard for me to have an opinion. And I'm not holding against anybody. I'm just making the point that it's hard for me to take that into consideration and understand it. So I don't think I have any other questions at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Glover?
Thank you, Chair. Bill, I think what he's asked, I think And Councilman Mendez, through the chair, I'll ask, I think what Councilman Mendez was asking, and you may have answered it, was on your page 2 of the presentation you guys gave me, or you gave us, excuse me, you had a $314,000 request for those 12 part-time positions. If you did the same thing last year, what would that number have been? I think you said it was 426. Okay, so you answered that. I think the other part of Councilman Mendez's questioning, it might be on D05-6. That will actually kind of go through allocation of positions, et cetera. And that's not what my question was, but I think for clarification, that may have been what he was asking. Here's where my question goes, and this, I guess this is to finance. We just got the book. Well, I just got mine Friday, and I've not had an opportunity to really scour through everything. But one thing that comes out blatant to me, and it really comes out and things that I can't wrap my head around, is on page D053. We have a little over $2 million that's placed into an administrative account. And I'm trying to figure out why we're doing that. I don't see us doing that to any other department. So if somebody can help me understand why we're doing that, that would be wonderful.
Stand by, let me see, I can't, okay, we have someone that's going to address that. I can't see him because of the monitor.
Are we on? Okay. The Election Commission has some core administrative responsibilities that whether we had an election in a particular year or had 4 elections in a particular year, there is a core of administrative responsibilities that would have to be ongoing. If you look at the Election Commission's budget over a period of 10 years or so and graph it, it looks like a roller coaster. It's up, down, directly related to the number of elections that they have. And if we're going to use the budget as a planning and management tool, there was a desire to separate those core administrative roles and responsibilities from the expenses that are directly related to the number of elections that occur in a particular year. So on the administrative side of their budget, they received 2 additional full-time positions. They received $15,000 for the voter outreach. And then they received every dollar they requested for elections, direct election expenses in the administrative fund. So that administrative fund will still fluctuate as it, directly related to the number of elections. But they're ongoing day-to-day operations that are very important and would have to occur whether there are 0 elections or 4 elections in one year, are in their operating budget, which was increased. And the fringe benefit adjustment that was referred to, the $176,000 that was put in their budget in March, rolls over into their baseline budget for FY17. So for FY17, they're getting the additional $176,000. They're getting 2 full-time positions. They're getting $15,000 for the voter outreach. And every dollar they ask for conducting elections is over in the administrative account.
Okay. A desire, I can't remember exactly the way you phrased it. There was somebody had felt it was a good idea to do it this way.
Correct.
Right. I don't know that I would agree with that. So let's walk through the numbers then real quick. So you're saying was $176,000 in fringe that?
Correct.
Okay, so that $176,000 is going to be added back into the $2.2 million. So is that going to be additional?
That becomes part of their baseline when we, every year we make these adjustments mid-year. Some departments need it and some do not. For this current year we're in, the $176,000 was put into their budget and then becomes part of the baseline. So you don't see that as an improvement On their highlight sheets in the budget book, it doesn't show as an addition, but it is additional funds in their budget that roll over to the following year.
Okay, so they were budgeted $5.8 million last year for everything. So when all is said and done and we close the books, are we going to show a little over $6 million that they actually received in this past year?
Yeah, there are only 2 elections this year.
No, I know there's not as many of elections. My question is, I'm trying to identify the $176,000. Is that money that, if I'm understanding and hearing you correctly, that's money that will be rolled into their baseline for next year? So
Correct.
The mayor's budget was $2.2 million that was recommended. I'm asking the question, does the additional $176,000 get put on top of the 2.2?
It's already in there.
Okay, so $176,000. Help me understand where that money came from.
There is a contingency account for fringe benefits, and every year, usually mid-year, and it occurred a little bit later this year than it normally does, and hopefully it will be a little bit earlier. Really, it's supposed to be, we try to look at it mid-year, and departments that were not funded sufficiently in fringe benefits, the adjustments are made, and then that becomes part of their baseline budget. And so that's what happened with the Election Commission and a number of other departments had mid-year adjustments. When I worked in the health department for many years, I mean, we knew that if our budget accountability reports were showing short on fringe benefits, that was going to be adjusted mid-year, and it was we received an adjustment most years, if not every year. So
So this year, then, they did their income tax return, and voila, they got a refund that they weren't anticipating. Is that? I'm just trying to break this down simply where I can understand the dollars.
Well, what I wanted to do is just give you a comparison of what they had to operate on in this current year and what they will have in next year, and that does include $176,000 from that adjustment, 2 new positions, and $15,000 for that voter outreach. Mm-hmm. They didn't get everything they asked for. Very few departments got everything they asked for unless they didn't ask for very much. That's the situation, and if you compare the 2 years, that's where the adjustments are.
Okay, Chair. I'll have conversations in the background on this, but I certainly hope that as we go through this process and we convene for our own meetings, that we talk about this particular piece of it. Thank you.
Council A. Weiner?
Thank you, Chair. Who has control over that administrative money? I guess this would be a finance or a Rich question.
That is not a finance account. They will have control over that account. We met with them and explained that they can fund positions in that account, poll workers, part-time positions. They can fund other expenses that are directly related. In other words, if you have 4 elections in 1 year, and you would have higher expenses as a result of that, those are the kinds of costs that would be budgeted in that other account, and we're not going to be overseeing that. They have spending authority on that account. It is a way to track the expense that is generated by the number of elections versus the core functions of the Election Commission, which have to go on whether we have an election or not.
Okay, so 2 questions. Question number 1 is, if they don't use all of those funds that are in the administrative account this year, can those funds roll to the next year?
No.
They have to be used. So they have all the availability of all those funds to use in that administrative account, in addition to their operating account,
Correct.
right? Okay. What other departments have such administrative accounts? I mean, like sheriff, health. Who else has those?
I came from the health department, so I can speak to that one pretty well. The cost of inmate health services is in an administrative account. We were in a situation at the health department where we could be right on track with our budget on through the year, and then perhaps there's a liquor store robbery and a police chase, and someone crashes a car and 2 people end up in Vanderbilt with head trauma, and we could get a $500,000 medical bill for that would blow the budget. And it was a cost that we asked to be put into the administrative, and I'll give Rich credit for that. He saved us on that one. But there are some legitimate reasons to do that, and in this case, I don't see it as a negative toward the Elections Commission. It is not a finance account. It is their account for their expenses directly related to conducting elections.
So this offers clarity to the line item budget.
I think it does.
Right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Councilor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a brief comment. I think the discussion has been exhausted. I just wanted to commend Ms. Nixon as interim, and during all the years that she's been there at the Election Commission, I think she always operates it in integrity and does a really good job, and I wish that you could be a director. I really do. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because I think you know the system. It's always operated in integrity, and I think in light of the many things that have come and the different directors, that you would be a good candidate. And so I just want to share that openly and publicly in light of all things going on. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll echo what Ms. Gilmore says. I may be asking the same questions that we've been asking, but I'm looking at the fiscal year budget recap in the presentation, and it shows a total of the mayor's recommended budget of $2,226,100. And then when I look in the budget book, Election Commission at a glance, I see $2,632,000. Are those the same sums, or do they represent different things?
Okay, I will let my finance manager
Thank you.
address that.
So on page 2 of your presentation, on page D05-1,
Yeah, the budget that you see there, the $2,632,300 represents the administration account that will remain in the general fund. The $2,999,000 for the election side is not there. It will be in an administrative account. It's on page D05.
0503. And then how does that relate to the $2,226,000 that I see in the presentation?
The $2,220,000, I'm sorry.
In the handout that we were given?
This is what we were given. That is our current budget, administrative budget, with these additions.
And so the fact that the 2.6 seems to be a lot higher, maybe 314,000 higher, that looks like that's enough to fund those 12 part-time positions. I'm sure I'm missing something here. Can you help me out?
Yes, the 12 part-time positions are unfunded.
And so why, there's a difference between this 2017 mayor's recommended budget, 2.2 million roughly, and then in the budget book, I see 2.6 million. And then I see the 2,099,000, which to me adds up to lots.
Yes, it was confusing to me as well.
Okay,
In fact,
good.
I brought it up to finance, and that's when I found out that the monies were being shifted to an administrative account.
Gotcha.
So it was confusing.
Gotcha. So that, to me, sort of looks like it adds up to more than 4.7 million that you have for the year. Is that right or wrong, to cover the elections as well as your ongoing administrative costs?
We have to remember that in the administrative budget, it has to be verified election expenses. We can't just move part-time people working in registration or any non-elected parts. Let me say this. This was a phrase I used with finance on Friday at our 2 o'clock meeting when they called us to talk about this. I remember when I worked at finance, some people think that after we completed the budget book, there wasn't anything to do, but there was a lot to do. It's the same with the Election Commission. It's the same with a lot of other departments that's here. Once you achieve your performance on your core task, there's a lot of cleanup. There's a lot of other daily work that has to be done. The 12 people that we are requesting are just 2 more people than if we go back to a human resources audit in 2003 in December. We're asking for 2 more people than what we had in 2003. So if you look at the budget, it does look like a roller coaster from 20 years ago all the way through if you graphed it. But even after this change, you're going to see a roller coaster because it's the cost and effect of the number of elections that we have from this day forward that causes that roller coaster effect.
Right. Okay. And so the 12 part-time positions are not related specifically to elections. They are part-time positions you need year-round to keep things going.
We need 12 part-time people to help us just get the job done. We have an enormous amount of work, cleanup, inventory, registrations that are, because we have a bifurcated filing program in which we have to file all registrations electronically, and then we have to go back and do it the way they did it in the 30s. We have a filing room, and we have to file every card.
I mean, the 12 part-time personnel are crucial. They're critical to our day-to-day operations.
And why are they 12 part-time as opposed to 8 full-time or however many?
We have asked for additional full-time positions, and we need those full-time positions as a backup or as an added layer of comfort to get the work done in case the majority of those staff members are not available to do that. So they just help in continuing that process. For example, right now in our voter registration department, we just have 1 manager. And if anything happens to that person, then we're going to have to, go to Plan B. So that's why we had been asking for the additional full-time person to assist that person, and then continue to use the part-time to process the data entry for special voting services with military voting, college students voting. So any of those specialty voter services obviously are going to have an increase this coming up year. So again, we use those part-time personnel to make up for the not having an additional person.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. Okay, and then just one more time to reiterate the question to show that I'm still not understanding what must be clear. In the budget book, there is $2.6 million for 2016-17 for core ongoing roles not related to elections, which is at least $300,000 more than the 2.2 that I'm seeing in the mayor's recommended budget in the handout that you gave us. And so my question is, that seems like that $300,000 that we wish we had to pay for the part-time is there, but apparently it's not. So what is that paying for? You see the numbers that I'm asking about?
Our current budget, now, let's remember that the 176 that the Assistant Finance Director was talking about was reduced in this number by $38,400. So we did not get, starting July 1st, $176,000 fringe adjustment. That's just a normal part of their job as well. I'm not being critical. That's just what they do. Our FY16 budget, administration budget is $2,457,200, and then when we add the $126,400 to this budget, we have $2,583,600. That number that's of the 2.6 includes internal service fee adjustments and fringe adjustments. But our budget, operating budget, is actually $2,583,600.
Okay. I'll talk to you later. I appreciate the explanation.
Okay, Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for presenting your budget. I think the concern for me is that the numbers don't add up for me. And with any budget, we should be able to duplicate what you're actually presenting. So I've subtracted it with the 176. You just alluded to the 38.4. I took that out, added it back in. I'm not clear on how you get how you're getting these figures, what they're paying for, and why there are so many different amounts. On one page, you have 2.5. In our budget book, we have 2.6. I understand you're saying that the 176,000, that's the baseline. That's where you're starting from. But then you just said the 38 that you took out 38,400. So are you saying that your baseline, you didn't start at 176, you actually started at 137.6? If you understand, am I clear with my question?
Yeah, but let's also remember the internal service fee adjustment of, I think it was 80,000.
Okay, so we have another fee of 88,000.
Yes. That's added to that number as well, the 2.6. The 2.6 is correct. It just includes the internal service fee adjustment and the fringe benefit adjustment.
So which is your actual request? Are you requesting the 2.5 or the 2.6?
Well, it's the 2,583,600 is what, but the internal service fee adjustments are a normal part of the budgeting process that finance puts in there.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm trying to keep this on the committee, and then Council A. Johnson and Shulman, I'll get to you, I promise you. Councilman Mendez?
Thank you. I'll keep this brief. I have, I guess, a request from Metro Finance. I wonder if you could take pages D05, 1, and 3, and given the fact that this year represents a change in the approach, I wonder if D5-1 could be essentially restated for the last 2 fiscal years to show us the operating budget component being consistent, and pull out what, if the treatment that you're looking for this year had happened the last 2 fiscal years, what would the election number be compared to the operating fund? I think that would help burn through some of this thing that we've been talking about for the last half hour. And then my further request would be, it seems, and this is to Council Member Allen's point, it seems like every which way the various council people are trying to look at this, the numbers seem like the total numbers being put in the budget between the operating and the election fund are what they want, but there's apparently this nomenclature about where are the 12 people. And if we could, I know we can't have another hearing probably, but if we could get those restated numbers reformatted, show what the year over year would be for the operating, and all work off the actual budget pages, that seems like it might help what seems like it's going to be a series of offline conversations to learn more about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question goes back to the administrative account. And I think finance was pretty clear that they don't control access to that account. That account goes into the Election Commission budget. Is that right?
They will have spending authority on that account. They can set up positions as they wish. They can set up other expenditures as they wish that are related to the conducting of elections.
So let me clarify what spending authority means. Again, it's, I guess my question is, when you look at the general budget, their budget this year is $2.6 million, whether, I know there's different numbers floating around, but in our budget book, it's $2.6 million, which is last year, the 2015-16 is looking at $5.5 million, so there's obviously a decrease in the budget, and most of it's that administrative account. So when you say spending authority, does anybody from finance have to approve it? Once it's passed as a budget, is it their money to spend?
It is their money to spend, and we have told them that we would be as flexible as we can with them about it. We did ask that expenses related to the conducting of elections be charged there. So it's not, no one in finance is going to be signing off on the positions, the payroll, the purchases that go to that account.
All right, so let me just clarify, because you said we will be as flexible as possible. Again, the question is, if it's their money, how come it doesn't show up in their budget? Why is it? It's showing up as an administrative account, but it's not showing up in their budget. So where is it? Where does it show up in our budget?
It's in the budget ordinance. You'll see a line item for elections, administrative account, whatever the number is. I can't remember the exact number. And it's designed to allow for, as Mr. Romine said, each year the amount for elections changes based on the number of elections that fiscal year. This year, for example, I believe there were 3 elections. Next year there are 2, August and November. And so it appears to be that there's wide swings in the Election Commission budget because of the different number of elections. So rather than to have those wide swings and to make sure that we have enough money in there for early voting and day of election voting, I think Finance Director O'Neill, she's not here, so I'll speak for her, felt that going forward it made more sense to keep that separate from the day-to-day operation of the department's budget. And so we took the number that the election people asked for how much money do you need to run the August election? X dollars. That's in the administrative account, plus how much money do you need for the November election? X dollars. So that's the total of the $2,099,000, I think it is, based on the numbers we received from the Election Commission. So they will spend that money just like they would every other year. It's just set aside differently that way so that next year, so then fiscal 18, when there's probably 3 elections, I'm going from memory, I can't think off the top of my head, it would show a $1 million, $1.5 million increase because of the number of elections. Well, instead of having that in the operating budget, so you can compare operating budgets really year to year, that would be in an administrative account, which would show the increase. But if you look at your budget ordinance, you'll see it in their administrative account. It's in the early part of the budget ordinance under expenditures, and it's designed solely for the Election Commission.
All right, so I haven't looked at the budget ordinance, so the question is there any language that goes with it that puts control over with the finance department over this money in order to release it?
And I think the only control would be if they spent $2 million on the August election, the finance would say, wait a minute, you don't have enough money now to do the November election. So that would be the only triggering point that would come to mind where the finance would have any concern over the spending of the money.
All right, so yeah, obviously it's not in their budget. It's going to be in a separate part of the budget ordinance, and this amount of money will show up in that part just as some separate account. Okay. I guess my last question will be these 12 part-time positions. What do they basically do? I know we've had a lot of discussion, and I know
Right.
you said they're crucial to the running of the office, but what do they do?
If you look on page 4 of the handout, I've just given you a snapshot of some of the duties that they are currently doing. And as I said, as I've stated, this list isn't exhaustive. So, but these are a few of the duties that they perform. And I will point out, if you would look at the next to last bullet point, for this March election, which was a historic a voter turnout for a presidential preference primary, over 4,000 registered voters in Davidson County changed their address on Election Day. And before voter history is posted, before we credit your registration with your voter history, we have to process these manually. And after we change a voter's change of address, we then must manually put their vote in. So we have to credit their vote first, change their address first, and then credit their voter history, and then we continue on with the certification of the election and posting that voter history. So I just wanted to point out how important one of the processes that these part-time personnel have to do. And after that, they have to be filed manually. Our voter applications are not where we can't put them in a file room and just leave them there. They still have to be manually kept up. And as I've stated in their list of duties, they've already filed approximately 15,000 documents. And that's not even half of what they have to continue to finish to help us do.
You're saying, you had said before that these people are crucial to actually running the process for the
Yes.
elections. Okay.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, that ends my questions. I guess as chair of the Rules Committee, which also oversees the elections process, what I would ask, and I believe we still do wish list, I think I would put the 12 temporary, the part-time folks back on the wish list for us to consider.
There's a list on your desk this year requiring a written request.
Okay.
And just answer all the questions that are pertinent to that. And
I have to give like a home address and social security number and things like that.
maybe where the money's coming from would be a
Okay.
good one.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Johnson.
Is it me or is it me?
I'm sorry, Karen Johnson.
Okay.
It's getting late. Sorry, getting a
We
little
forget
tired.
we'd have two Johnsons here.
I'm sorry, Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Prime Moore. And I want to echo Councilwoman Gilmore and Berkeley Allen in regards to the incredible amount of work and integrity that you bring to that office, Administrator Nixon.
Thank you.
And
Interim.
well, interim, but we see you as the administrator. I'm like Councilwoman Gilmore. If there was any way that we can get you permanently in that position, I would advocate strongly for that because your work over the years has been trusted, and you do that with a lot of integrity.
Thank you for the compliment.
My question is, I heard Mr. Riebling say that you need a different amount of money for different elections. My question is, do you need additional money for the presidential election?
No, if you look on page 3, that also the election for November is in that administrative account as well. So the election day for August and November and the early voting locations are in that account. So that was funded, yes.
Okay, so the 12 positions are funded in the admin account.
I will let Mr. Hayden explain where those funding positions would come from.
Yeah, the 12 positions are recurring positions for our admin account. We do not have the funding for them. We have to keep 3 positions open and then find extra funding to make that happen. Now, that's not 3 positions we don't need. Those are jobs that some of us are doubling up on and making sure that the work is done. It's not that, we're not asking for something, that we just need them. I mean, we've been here, in this discussion a number of times, and it's very difficult, and I know it is, to understand our issues with, and not that we have bad issues with finance, but we meet with them trying to get an understanding of these 12 positions, and they have been here an average of 6 years, and we can, like I said, we can go back to 2003 and show that these positions were requested at that point all the way through each year. Since 2012, we have asked that these positions be added to the recurring budget so that we could reduce our requests each year, because each year we had to ask for the funding for those in the non-recurring budget, which inflated our costs for each election. So if we had it where it needed to be in the administration and just funded one time, then our election costs over the years will be less than adding increased election costs plus these non-recurring positions each year. And it's, as you know, it's tough to find the money to get that.
Thank you for that clarification. I will support what Councilman Schulman has also stated, that I will place a request in to ask that you all be given that additional funding, because it is seemingly needed each time. And so I think that since it's not a recurring amount that's in the budget, we need to change that and fund this for you. Thank you.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Really appreciate it. Just quick question, because so many people try to ask it, so I'm not going to ask again, but I do have a request. On page 3 of your handout and our budget book D05-3, total funding for election held in administrative account, $2,099,700. And your number 3, if we add 105,200 of electronic polling book rental, match up exactly. However, I am still having a hard time finding out your number of $2,226,100. So if you would provide how you come up with this number, I would appreciate it.
I will, if it's okay, I've got a spreadsheet. Are you ready? I've got a spreadsheet that I will send to the council members that details every piece of this to make up those numbers. But that number is made up of 2 positions that are $55,700 each, $105,200 for the poll books, $15,000 for the get out the vote, $309,700 for early voting in August, $613,200 for Election Day in August, $458,400 for early voting in September, and November, $613,200 for November. That makes up that number.
Ms. Tynan, if you would, just instead of send it to each council member, if you would just send it to the council office, we'll make sure it gets out to everyone.
Thank you.
So, do you have any other questions, Council Lady Johnson?
No, Chair, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sorry? Certainly. Go ahead.
Me. Thank you. My name is Jim Delanis. This is my first year to be up here. I have been on the commission for 3 years now, and so I have, from the back of the room, I have observed before, and I want to thank the council for its support. We've put on 6 elections in sequence that have been almost trouble-free with minimal problems, and we could not have been able to do that without the support of this body. We can't do that without funding, and we thank you all because we've been here in this position before, and we are here again. I'm as confused as some of you are about some of these numbers, but I've looked at them and I've asked a lot of questions, and I think I understand part of this, and I hope I can clarify. When we say part-time workers, these people are full-time in every real sense of the word. They work full-time. The positions have been there for 10 years. These people, on average, have been employees of the Election Commission for 6 years. We could not have run these elections, the last 6 elections we have done, without these people. So these are core, important people. This is a line item budget. I don't understand on the line item why there's money over here and there's money over there, but the funding for these 12 positions is somehow verboten. I don't get it. I have a hard time looking these people in the eye and explaining it to them. And, you know, we are supposed to have a transparent budget so that people can understand it. And, you know, if these people are necessary and if we have to pay them, why can't we reflect that on our budget so we'll know we have them going into a presidential election, and so they'll know they have a job? And these are not people we can easily replace. These are trained people, and you know they really are necessary for us. So I just want to implore you to consider some of those factors. And we do thank you. This is the 3rd year in a row we've been here, and you all have been very helpful to us in the past. And we couldn't have been able to put on these last 6 elections without your help.
Okay, if that's no other questions in the queue, Ms. Nixon, we certainly appreciate you being here and your presentation and the staff, and we thank you and very appreciative.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, with that concludes the first night of the council budget hearings. We are adjourned.